Welcome to the food growing section of the Academy. Actually, the whole Academy is kind of a food growing thing, but this module here, all these modules are going to be specifically about growing food. And if you're in the Academy, you know that I always do this little intro video here at the beginning of every section. But what I'm going to do today is actually go for a little walkthrough around my garden, show you some of the plants I'm growing, and I'm going to post it on my blog too, because I figured maybe somebody there is interested to see that. So what I have behind me here is this little garden that I put in last year. This is only the second year, so it's not super productive yet. The soil still needs improving. It takes a number of years to really get to, it can take a decade to get to being highly productive, but already growing lots of food in year 2. And this garden is going to evolve, but it's not going to become the garden of my dreams because this isn't at my place. I don't live here. I don't spend a lot of time here, so I had to install a garden that was pretty easy for me to maintain if I'm just showing up once a month to make sure everything's in check. And also it's at my parents' place, so eventually I want them to be able to maintain it. So it's kind of too bad that I can't show you everything that I would do in my garden, but I get to show you pretty much everything. And what I think is really cool is that I get to show you how much food you can get out of a pretty small garden. This is less than 1,000 square feet, and we have a lot of different crops coming out of here. So I'm just going to take a quick walk through. If you're already growing a bunch of food, this is not going to be that big a deal to you because you already know what these things look like. But I'll share a few principles while I walk through here. So just give me a second to get the camera off here. And excuse the... Okay, so here we go. So I'm just going to start talking about whatever I run into here. Tomatoes are obviously everyone's favorite crop. I hope you guys know, if you don't know, these little tomato cages are not very useful. The only time I use them is when I have too many tomatoes for my trellises, which work much better. You can see I've already had to tie this one up because they always flop over. The tomatoes get too big for them. They can be maybe useful for determinate tomatoes, but mostly I don't recommend them. So let's see here. You're going to notice things like dill and basil and parsley and all kinds of herbs and alliums all throughout the garden. I plant them liberally. Even you'll notice in my corn back here, which is quite a nice happy corn patch. I don't know if you can see into the shadows, but there are dozens of different native plants in there, wildflowers, and perhaps that in theory is going to diminish my corn yield, but it's really making a wonderful ecosystem in there. A lot of biodiversity, a lot of things like to get in there. I have a few beans climbing up the corn stalks. I don't know if you can see them. There's a cucumber that is starting to climb up. You're going to notice there's a purple basil, lots of basil. I even leave some cover crops growing. Mostly I take them out, but I leave a little bit for diversity. So I have some clover that I just keep on the border here, along with a rye grass, just a little bit of rye. Then it comes into a vetch, which is another legume, along with an annual ryegrass that looked really good. Now it's fallen over, but it's still kind of cool and rustic and provides homes for some insects, I'm sure. Then it's going to come back into clover there with the rye and back into some oats and clover and again some vetch. So I have lots of different covers going on. We've had a lot of cherry tomatoes in the last 2 weeks, and now the bigger tomatoes have been coming on, just starting, mostly still green, but harvesting a few red big tomatoes. You can see there's my parsley in there. There's a basil in here, or basil, however you want to say it. I have them all over the place. Squash is coming up on my trellis here too. I kind of have a modern, a little bit different version of the Three Sisters. I do plant a traditional nice patch of corn, but I put some squash all along the edges of it and some beans along the edges of it. That's a little black bean, a bush bean down there, but there are a few beans climbing up through the corn too, using the corn as a trellis. Have started harvesting potatoes and shallots. There's a few small radish patch still left over and a few beets in there. Rudbeckia is nice, leaning a little bit towards the sun right now, but he's pretty happy, and the echinacea is beautiful. Lots of butterflies on him this time of year, or her. I have basil all over this garden. There's a purple, there's kind of a small leaf basil, your more regular big leaf basil. I probably have 50 basil plants. There's some parsley. A lot of my parsley went to seed this year. It's a biennial, so in year 2 it goes to seed and starts to taste a little tough, but fortunately I do have some new ones around. There's some thyme, some tarragon, lots of dill around the garden, more thyme. Garlic patch ready to be harvested. This is one of my garlic patches. There's a volunteer squash that really shouldn't have volunteered there because it never went anywhere. Now we come over to the sheep mulch section of my garden that whenever I put in a new bed, I usually sheep mulch it for the first year. It's usually not quite as productive, which is the case here, but it still does okay. So my peppers are a little behind, but they're coming on. Baby pepper. Got lots of beans all around the garden. These ones are really cool. They're a purple bean, but if you've ever used them before, you'll know that they turn green as soon as you cook them. Again, there's some yellow cherry tomatoes, lots of other tomatoes, and beans climbing up my trellis here. Some squash. Really, this is a zucchini, like a crookneck zucchini. Looks kind of like a winter squash, but it's really tasty. You just eat it, don't need to cook it or anything. Have some ornamental plants throughout the garden too. I would never advise anyone plant a burning bush, especially as a standard, but it is quite nice in the fall and in the spring. More squash back here climbing up. Lots of parsley and basil in there. More purple beans and squash climbing up here. Some raspberries in there that I planted this year. Yeah, I have to remember to get this garlic out. And we have a locust providing a little shade for the strawberry patch, which is always producing a few strawberries here and there, ever bearing, as they say. Lemon balm in here. We get into the kind of main herb part of the garden. Lemon balm, a mint, sage, oregano. There's a container. Another oregano, some chives hiding in there. Let's see. Have more parsley and dill gone to seed. Cilantro gone to seed. There's kind of a lemony thyme. Another garlic patch that's in need of harvest, and it's going to flower. Flat leaf parsley, cabbage. Another mint family, I guess maybe an oregano. This is called horehound. This is the stuff they at least used to make hard candies out of. I don't know if they still do. It's kind of a variegated little thyme there. Here was my mesclun mix, which if you guys have ever grown mesclun mix, you'll know that you often get all the lettuces out and everything is left there. What I usually prefer to do is make my own mix, then I can sow a lot more lettuce. So we have arugula and a bunch of other various greens in here that are starting to go to seed, getting a little bitter. So I'm gonna have to clear this all out and plant something more appropriate in there for midsummer. Let's see, more like a regular yellow zucchini and some cucumbers in here. More dill. We eat a lot of herbs and greens, so that makes up a lot of the garden. We have some more basil and parsley, a few lingering brassicas, some broccolis I think that are perhaps not so happy with this heat. potato patch. Have a few of those around. Have a mint confined to this pot with a little bit of lavender and kale. Butterfly bush that is covered with butterflies, but really is not the most appropriate plant for most of North America. It's not native to most of here, and so butterflies will come and eat the pollen, but they're not going to lay their eggs. There are a lot better plants to put in your garden, so do as I say, not as I do, as they say. Actually, there's a butterfly weed back in there that is native. That's a little bit more appropriate. Here's a raised bed I put in this summer that I'm going to plant in the fall. It's just sheet mulch now. And you can see we kind of have some ornamentals throughout too. There's a really beautiful red bud in the background. I had over here is more of an ornamental garden that was a huge kale forest I just harvested. That's why the soil's bare right now. So, yeah, there's my garden. Kind of just rambled through there and listed a bunch of plants, but really with all the herbs and greens, there's probably 40 plus kinds of plants in there. Various, not right now peas, but certainly a lot of different kinds of peas and beans, bush beans, pole beans, scarlet runners, some dried beans, all the solanums, so potatoes, peppers, tomatoes, different squashes, cucumbers, melons. What other families? Carrots. There's carrots buried in here. And carrots and a lot of the carrot herbs. So the celery behind me, dill, parsley. Obviously, I have lots of onions throughout here. So garlic, shallots, just onions. What other families do we have here? All the various kinds of greens, all the herbs, the mints. The corn is a grass. What else? Probably more. Oh yeah, certainly your beet family with your chard and your beets. Your brassica family with your cauliflower and your broccoli and your kale and radish. So you can see there are many vegetables you can get out of quite a small space. Even if you only have a couple hundred square feet, you can grow a lot of food in there. So normally my introduction in the Academy is just a couple minutes long. But what we're going to be getting into today for Academy members, I'm going to go over how to grow a bunch of different kinds of plants. Perhaps not everything I mentioned today, but a number of different kinds of plants, and get into companion planting and intercropping, succession planting, crop rotations, polycultures, preparing the design of your bed. Eventually I'll get into all the harvesting, storing, preserving, canning, saving seed, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to do a whole other food module too, where I get into making that raised bed over there, winter gardening, building trellises, building cold houses, a lot of stuff. Pretty fun for me, and I hope it's fun for you. So we'll see you soon.